and you're all very welcome along to Season 5, Episode 7 of the Champ.ie podcast, Ireland's premier horse racing podcast in association with Boylesports, Gowran Park Racecourse and Syndicates Racing. Coming up on this week's show, Barry speaks to special guest Keith Donoghue about his upcoming book of rides at the Fairyhouse Winter Festival, and the lads look ahead to 5 key races at Newbury, Newcastle and Fairyhouse, as well as giving their best bets for this weekend.
Inside the final 150 yards, it's Irish Point from Marine National, who's coming with every stride. They're going to the line. Irish Point, Marine National on the near side. Marine National and Irish Point have put it to the judge.
If you haven't already, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the Champ.ie YouTube channel, as it helps to get horse racing content out there to the wider audience. We look forward to reading all your weekend #5cast selections in the comments below. Sit back, relax and enjoy the show.
Boylesports. Don't just bet, choose wisely.
Hi everyone, a very warm welcome. Yes, it's us again, the Fab Four. There are other descriptions available. And welcome to another weekend looking ahead on the Champ.ie podcast in association. And we're proud with our sponsors, Boylesports, Gowran Park Racecourse and Syndicates Racing. We've got something for everyone. And if anybody's given Jack Frost a ticket this weekend, I want to know who, because they'll be off the Christmas card list. That is that slight worry about the weekend, talk of inspections all over the place. But we hope we've got a full weekend of racing and some really cracking stuff if we had. As always, the management has spared absolutely every expense, and we've rounded up off the streets this week. Barry Doyle, the co-founder of this entire, it's the word in front of me is production, but I leave that to your judgment. Also, we have the great young up-and-coming rising star, Mr. What am I going to use that adjective to describe? Mr. Ronan Groome of the Irish Field, and the legend that is Davy Boland, who's been there, done that, and he's probably sitting in a room where behind him he's got a whole bookcase full of T-shirts. Gentlemen, you are all very welcome. We've got a lot to look forward to. So let me also tell you that coming up, we've got Keith Donoghue a little bit later on in the programme ahead of when we turn our attention to Sunday and the 3 big Group 1s. But 2 important things you have to do first. If you haven't, and I want to know why, subscribe. Do it now. 1 click. That's all you need to do. And the other thing is to like. Like and subscribe. Very simple. And we can now look at the 5 races we've got coming up. 2 from Saturday, 1 at Newbury and 1 at Newcastle. And the 3 big Grade 1s at Fairyhouse on Sunday. Bearing in mind, of course, the form of Willie Mullins in terms of getting odds-on shots turned over, including one at his backyard at Drinmore in the week. Lots to talk about then. So here we go. Let's start with the Coral Gold Cup. Barry, you can have first innings on this. As fiercely competitive as you would expect, and a strong Irish challenge from John McConnell, and also quite significantly as well, one from Gavin Cromwell.
Yeah, well, there's only been 1 Irish winner, Mike, of the Hennessy in the last 20 years. I think it was Total Recall, Willie Mullins. And yeah, it's always one of my favourite races of the calendar. It used to, was it the Rasher counter? I think was a Champ.ie favourite once upon a time. A couple of little stats. 4 of the last 10 winners have been 10 to 1 or more. So it's a type of race that you can have a stab at in terms of a bigger sort of a price. Only 2 of the last 20 winners were age 9 or more. So second season novices have a decent record in the race. Obviously, respect the likes of Complete Unknown, Mahler Mission coming over for John McConnell. Maybe stable form, a little bit of a concern for John McConnell at the moment. No winners from his last 32. Mom Big Genius has a big P beside its name on its most recent outing. That was, of course, on his seasonal reappearance. But I think he was travelling and running better maybe than the finishing position suggested at Ascot in that handicap grade 3. He's off a mark of obviously 147 and could be dangerous for John O'Neill and John O'Neill Jr. So I'd massively respect him. Stumptown, he's come up plenty in the handicap, hasn't he, last season? Obviously has been targeted this. Danny Mullins on board. And the Skelton stable form as well, maybe a slight concern as well. I think he did make reference to that, but they have had a couple of winners today as we're recording. So the one, I suppose, at a bigger price, not your typical, certainly pedigree for a race like the Hennessy, but it's Our Power for Sam Thomas. That's the one I like at 16-1. It's an 8-year-old. I suppose Sam Thomas in these big handicaps has done well in the past. 25% strike rate for the stable at the moment, and he's by power, but he jumps like a Flemingford. No issues with his jumping whatsoever. And obviously his chasing career, he's had 4 wins from 9 chase starts. So I thought with the ground drying as well, I think that's a factor this weekend. Certainly, I think John O'Neill did make reference that the softer ground, the better for the likes of Monbeg Genius. Obviously, Mallow Mission was going well at Cheltenham. That was really testing ground on the Tuesday of Cheltenham, complete unknown as well. So I think the ground is probably coming in his favour. He's just £5 higher this Our Power than when he won at Kempton. So he's a course winner. He's had a pipe opener at the course as well over hurdles. And I just thought off his mark, he could be dangerous. He'd be staying on well at the end, and the race could be run to suit. So, yes, 16-1, Our Power. I'm going to have a belt off this race, Mike. And that's where I've gone.
Ronan Groome, I mean, you look at this race, you look at Remastered second last year. Zanza loves the place. Eldorado Alain's got good form. There are any number that you sort of cross out at your peril, aren't there?
Absolutely. It's wide open, I think, Mike. Barry says he loves this race. I've terrible luck in this race down the years. I still can't believe how Fiddler on the Roof got beat that year by Cloudy Glen, who, interestingly, is going to take his chance here again. And Remastered last season, I thought he was all over. I was all over him as well. So he's back for more as well. I'll go through a couple of the top. Complete Unknown is your classic kind of Hennessy horse. I can call him a Hennessy horse because I'm referring to the yesteryears of the race where you have that kind of classy second season horse. Could be well handicapped off of 152. I'm sure Paul Nicholls has aimed him at this and worked backwards from this race. And Mallow Mission is the same type of horse. I think he was going to. I think he probably should have won the National Hunt Chase last season, bar. If he'd stayed up, he still might have won, but he was probably sent on too early as well. That John McConnell form obviously would be a huge worry there. He hasn't had a jumps winner in 41 starts, and if you add in the flat horses he's had, that's an even bigger stat there. I was kind of like Barry. I like too. Our Power I mentioned as my horse, one of the horses to follow for the season, and I like Sam Thomas's other horse here, Stolen Silver. Like, he's quite high in the handicap. He's 157 now, but he bolted up at Chepstow. I think Sam Twist Davies jumped the last and probably realised how far in front he was and started easing him down, thinking, oh God, maybe this wasn't the actual plan. But he could be valued for more than £7. I think he beat a couple of nice, like, good solid types in behind him there. Like, I could see him running really well, and he's kind of unexposed at this trip. Our Power I like as well. I think Barry's said all you need to hear from him. I think he was travelling well enough into the Grand National last season and possibly didn't stay coming back to this sort of trip. He's a dual winner of 2 big handicap chases last season. And it's interesting that the horses that you mentioned, Mike, the likes of Bill Baxter and Gal Law, both, and that's all right, Gino as well, obviously declared in the rehearsal chase. I like Bill Baxter. I thought he had a good chance here. And I'm sure they're probably looking at the rehearsal chase possibly for softer ground. But if he showed up here, he'd actually be my selection. I just don't think he's going to run. So I'll mention him for the rehearsal chase when we get onto that. I think he's really interesting. But I'll go with Stolen Silver as my premier selection for the 5 cast. But I'm going to back our pair as well. I'm going to back the 2 Thomas pair. I'm
not suggesting you're going to tip it, Davey, but I'm fascinated that the 2 lads so far, neither have used the words ahoy senor. Group 1 winner with top weight.
Yeah, I'd just be worried on his run the last day, to be quite honest with you, Mike. But I think Twig had a very good run the last day in Cheltenham. Big price. I think Gavin Cromwell's horse, Stumptown, as Barry mentioned, he's gone up a lot in the weights, but he seems like a horse. He travels well to England, has run well, winning in Sandown, and then obviously ran into a very well handicapped horse of Sam Curlin's in the Kim Muir in Angel's Dawn, yeah. And I know Gavin's had this in mind for quite a while. Down low on the weights, Danny Mullins, I think he could be bang there. But to be boring with you, I really like the favourite, I do like Stumptown, but I just have complete unknown just in ahead of him. He was good in Kempton, and obviously a good run behind Jerry Colomb, who's now favourite for a King George, second favourite for a Gold Cup in Aintree, and then sure what he did in Newton Abbott, he didn't beat much, but you wouldn't expect anything else. It was just an ideal start for a seasonal reappearance. I think he has the right profile for this sort of race. The ground is ideal for him. He's fairly versatile, whether it's heavy or good to soft or even good ground. He has form on as well. And Paul Nichols' horse is in such good form as well. He's my pick with Stumptown behind him.
What did you make, lads? Just quickly, Mike. What did you make of Max Flamingo? Now he's a massive price. Interesting. Francis Casey's gone here. It's I think he's £2 to be exact out of the handicap, but in around the same mark with the ground drying out that he was well fancied for in an Irish National. They put the blinkers on for the first time last time up at Down Royal for a pipe opener in a hurdles race where he stayed on very, very smartly, I thought, at the finish. But Max Flamingo, I thought, is one that could maybe outrun its odds. The race could be run to suit him as well. What did you make of him, lads?
Yeah, very crafty. If this plan has been in the works for a long time, Francis Casey, because he ran a lot better at. He ran up in Down Royal, didn't he? He was fifth in Magic Tricks there, and that was a lot better than his seasonal debut down at Punchestown. So if he's bringing him along slowly, and this has been like a long-term plan, he was interesting, and he's a big price. I'm just not convinced he's terribly well handicapped off a mark of 140 and pulled up in his last two chases, including the Munster National as well, which I'm sure he would have been ready for those types of races. He was fancied for the Munster National, I think, wasn't he, last year? He was an 8-1 shot down there. So yeah, I can see where you're coming from, Basil. It wouldn't be for me, and I think
thought there were signs of life last time. But look, I'm not saying he's going away, but a massive price. It wouldn't surprise me.
You can't surely. I mean, it's got to be a substandard Gold Cup for anything to win from out of the handicap. And, there's enough, surely something is going to click towards the top. Whether you go on the right one's another matter. It's very open, it's very competitive. And I just can't have a horse from out of the handicap that we know all about doing it. Right, okay, what you need to do then is put your first winner down on your piece of paper, which you'll turn into a 5-cast message at the end of this podcast, namely the horse you think will win the Coral Gold Cup at Newbury. That's race 1. And then we move straight on to race 2 on this Champ.ie podcast with Boylesports, Syndicates Racing and Gowran Park Racecourse. More on all of those in a little while. And we can, I think, probably skip through this quite quickly because there's one question within the rehearsal chase. Can Shishkin A, start, and B, give a huge amount of weight to his rivals? Ronan?
I think he'll start. It's interesting reading Nicky's comments last week about where the race was, and he seemed to think that if it was a 2-mile, at the 2-mile start, he would have started no problem. I think it's odds on he'll start this time. I don't think it has anything to do with the cheek pieces. I think if he starts, obviously he's got a great chance. He's the right favourite, but he's still off a mark of 173. I'm sure I was reading this somewhere, Mike, during the week. There's only 2 horses that have competed off higher marks in the last 15 years or something. One of them is obviously Denman, and I think was a Q card, the other one in a Halden Gold Cup or something like that. So it's good to see him taking his chance off this sort of mark in a handicap. We should probably see more of it, but it doesn't necessarily mean he's just going to run all over these, and he does have jumping issues as well. As I said, I just wanted to mention Bill Baxter, because if he runs here, and I think he might run here on account of the soft ground, I think the good to soft ground at Newbury as it is at the moment, maybe Warren Greatrix is half thinking about them. He was just really progressive last season, and they've trained him as a Hennessy or a Coral Gold Cup horse this season. He went to Carlisle. They had to give weight away to 2 horses that were better rated than him. And he would have been well treated if he was running against a man in the Coral Gold Cup, but they might come here instead. And if I think he has a chance in the Coral Gold Cup, I must think he has a chance here. I thought 10-1 was actually quite a fair price about him. He's unexposed over this trip. I'm sure if they're training him as a Coral Gold Cup horse, they think he'll improve up at this trip as well. He's had a wind up as well, so I think he's primed for a huge run, and he'd be my way into this race for the 5 cast.
And Davey, hearing what Ronan was saying, they're going to have the worst of the ground for this race, 707. Has anybody told Nicky Henders?
I don't think it really matter. Shishkin's way ahead of these. Port weight stops trains and that, but sure, the handicap marks. Look, he will jump off, as Ronan said. Look, it was a bit of an issue. It's just funny the way I didn't realise they had stopped about the whip at the start, and that was only a week previous, wasn't it? But I'd say they know after the last day, so they'll have someone down at the start and he'll jump off. And if he does jump off, Jesus, he should be beating these handy enough, you know. It's a fairly weak race.
Agree, Barry?
I don't know. Find it hard to trust him. He's risky. He's risky at the best of times, Shishkin. But look, obviously, as Davey said, if he turns up, he jumps off. What way would you price? What way would you price it up if he was to jump off? What 60-40 you would? I don't know. It's pretty short turnaround.
I'd take that, Basil.
I think a horse that'll hit the frame certainly is Empire Steel. I think he's form tied in obviously with Elvis Mail on their first run of the season over 3 Mile 2 at Kelso. I think he's a horse that he's obviously a lightly raced 9-year-old, one of a couple of 9-year-olds, 3 9-year-olds in the race, including Shishkin. 4 of his 5 wins have been when he's been going left-handed. Sandy Thompson won this race, believe it or not, with York Hill once upon a time. And he likes to be handy. I think in this race, there doesn't appear to be that much obvious pace in the race, which I think will suit him. And he was given away at the last day to Elvis Mail, who beat him. But he's racing more or less off levels this time round. And I just think stepping back down in trip, should I say, will definitely suit him. So he looks a horse as well that could be potentially laid out for this. So to step forward from his first run of the season, I think Empire Steel, lightly raced 9-year-old, and I think he's been well backed as well, 100-30. He's getting a lot of weight off Shishkin. So if there's any chinks there, I think he might be able to expose it, given the fact that this is a handicap. They're not racing off levels.
So there you go. That is your second choice now to be made for the 5 cast. Those are Saturday's races. Huge day, Fairyhouse on Sunday. I mean, they've got the Porterstown Chase as well, but the 3 Grade 1s are what we will feature, and we'll hear from Jockey Keith Donoghue next.
Gowran Park Racecourse, the premier racetrack in the southeast of Ireland, is located on the outskirts of Kilkenny City. Gowran is your #1 choice for corporate days out, stag and hen party events, and an overall great local racing experience. Known as the race that stops the county, the famous Goffs Thyestes Chase 2024 takes place on Thursday the 25th of January.
In the finish of the Goffs Thyestes, invitation only, and Ruby Walsh on the near side for Willie Mullins' 7th win of the race. Invitation only has beaten Alpha's Opus.
With packed crowds expected once again this January, you can book your early bird tickets online today. Visit GowranPark.ie online, click the link in the Champ.ie podcast video description, or scan the QR code on screen to purchase right now. Eddie and the team look forward to welcoming you all to Gowran Park Racecourse this winter.
And Patrick Mullins.
We had justified favouritism, but sharp object out in front, we're ready for John McConnell and Alex Harvey.
Western victory, Silver Lark. That'll be the finishing order.
Yes, and just a quick little word before we do hear from Keith Donoghue, just on our sponsors, Mike. €50 off your first share today with Syndicates Racing, of course. A very affordable way of getting to the big days, of course, the likes of Grand G. You know, Cabaret Queen, of course, you were involved in the horse, and well, Jack was very kind 2 weeks ago to offer that €50 off. So Christmas is coming up, plenty of dads, granddads, sons watching the show, girlfriends, perhaps. And you look, I think it's a lovely little offer. And
mother-in-law.
Yeah, mother-in-laws as well. But look, just type the if you want to purchase your share in a horse, obviously starting at €250. Cabaret Princess was recommended by Jack. Champ, all caps, into the checkout. Once you select your horse, you see the list of trainers. A fantastic choice there. So that's obviously Syndicates Racing. And just a word as well for Gowran Park, obviously early bird tickets save 25% if you get your tickets right now. We've a lovely prize giveaway. Next week, Eddie Scally will be on the show. He's not going to leave it another week because it's coming up to Christmas. So Eddie's going to get himself on the show and could have a very tasty competition in relation to Goffs Thyestes Chase next week. So lots to look forward to. And yeah, save 25%. Let's hear from Keith Donoghue right now. Brilliant. So delighted to be joined by Keith Donoghue once again on the Champ.ie podcast. It's, of course, Fairyhouse Winter Festival time, Keith, so no better time to get you on. Great to have you on the show again, and a busy weekend ahead.
Yeah, looks like it's going to be a busy weekend. Gavin has plenty of entries and plenty of good entries, so hopefully it'll be a good weekend.
Super, 39 winners, and it's only November. You're very much on course for your best season to date.
Yeah, please God. Last year I had 50 winners. I had 48 in Ireland and 2 in England. So if I could break that this year, it would be brilliant.
Super, and you're a very well-known figure from the County Meath, and I suppose a well-known figure as well in the Irish weighing room at this stage. I suppose very quickly, I suppose, for those watching who haven't heard the original story, I suppose, how did you get into racing, Keith?
I suppose it just grew up. My family, my mom's side of the family were all into racing. My granddad and my granddad's brother Andy Lynch was a trainer and worked with Noel Mead, and my granddad worked in Fairyhouse. He used to work down at the last fence, and he used to harrow the gallop when it was a public gallop. So I remember going up there with him from a young age, and you'd be down at the last fence watching Paul Carberry and the likes going by, and from as long as I can remember, I just wanted to be Paul Carberry.
I suppose Tiger Roll, Delta Work give you big days at Cheltenham. Apart from those Cheltenham winners, what's been your most memorable day in the saddle?
I suppose maybe winning the Grade 1 on the Storyteller in Down Royal. I thought that was brilliant. It was my second Grade 1 to win. Thought winning the Tri-Town was great because with my weight, I don't get that many opportunities in them bigger handicaps. You know, it's hard to get on the right horses in them races. So to win a Tri-Town was brilliant, and another local track in Navan. So I likes of them, and you know, you get great satisfaction out of small winners as well. You know, riding winners for maybe a small owner or lads that you know, normal lads that you know. You get good satisfaction out of that as well.
And I suppose your association with local trainers, and in particular, I suppose big yards like Gordon, obviously, and Gavin Cromwell, having that big association with a top yard at the moment, the likes of Gavin Cromwell, how important is that for your career, and why?
Sure, it's so important when all you see in the news at the minute is how dominated Irish racing is. If I didn't have Gavin, I wouldn't be having half the winners I'm having. I wouldn't be having half the rides I'm having, because he's so many horses, and there's not too many trainers with the amount of horses that Gavin has. So I'm very, very lucky to be in the position I'm in, and you know, I see how tight it is in Ireland with trying to get rides, and not even trying to get winners, just alone trying to get rides. It's so tight, so I'm very fortunate.
Yeah, super. And what a booker, what a season he's having as well, Gavin, in fairness. Notable entries this weekend. Obviously, we've 3 Grade 1s on Sunday at Fairyhouse, and I suppose starting with the Grade 1, of course, the Royal Bond, Encanto Bruno, point-to-point winner, twice a winner at Cheltenham. How is he?
Yeah, he's in good form. He's been going well at home lately. He looks very well. I think he's getting stronger all the time, and you know, we're very hopeful of a massive run from him.
What sort of feed did he give you in Cheltenham? I mean, do you think he's come on?
I think so. To be honest, before Cheltenham, I hadn't rode him a whole pile. I rode him a couple of times at home, but we never, you know, we were just going through the motions at home. We never really put him under much pressure, so we weren't 100% sure what we were going to get in Cheltenham, and you know, he couldn't have done it any easier. He gave me a brilliant feel. He travelled through the race lovely. If anything, he probably travelled a little bit too well, so that's why we're coming back down and trip, and he jumped so quick as well. And use his jumping, whereas in Cheltenham I was probably trying to take him back and not using his jumping.
And good ground, obviously, both his wins. In fact, all his wins is, even on the point-to-point circuit, there's been good ground in the ground description. Soft ground at the moment at Fairyhouse. Is that maybe a slight concern?
Sure, look at it. It probably has to be a little concern. It was on the slower side in Cheltenham the last day. Like, we'd probably call it yielding to soft if it was over here. I think it was good to soft or whatever it was. Over here we would have called that yielding. So, look, it is going to dry out plenty as well. There's not much rain forecast. So, if we could see a little bit of yielding coming into the ground again Sunday, I'd be happy enough. Obviously, it will be a little bit more holding because the rain has got into the ground, but we're only being told that he needs good ground. We think he'll be okay in it. We're only hearing from other people that he needs good ground, whereas we think he'll be okay.
Super. Well, very best of luck with Encanto Bruno at the weekend, of course, over the course of the season. Let's be clear about it. A nature road. He's made a super start over fences, Keith.
Yeah, he has. Obviously, he was he got to a high enough level over hurdles, finishing fourth in the Albert Bartlett, and he probably just travelled too strong that day. He done too much with me the whole way, and he still ran a massive race. I wouldn't say he's an out and out stayer either. I think kind of 2.5 miles is his trip, and jumping fences really suits him. He's such a touch wood. He's a really quick jumper, and he was good when I won on him in Gowran. Obviously, I couldn't do the weight in Cork the last day, but I was delighted to see him win so easily, and it was a great performance. So, look, it's definitely going to be the strongest race he's had on Sunday. It's when you have Gordon's horse found at 50, I Am Maximus and Charger and a couple others in there. So it's a very competitive race, but we're very happy with Ireland.
Red Zone, he showed quite a bit of pace last time, and he looked good, Keith. How's he? He's entered the weekend.
Yeah, he's in good form. He's a big tall horse. He's still only a shell of a horse, so I think it was the right thing to do, not go for the Royal Bond and just maybe come down a little bit in grade to give him maybe a chance to let him progress into hopefully being a good horse. He's in good form at home, and we're really happy with him. So we'll be hopeful of a big run from him.
Super. Hypotenuse, he made a great start at Gowran Park, and he's entered obviously in the listed contest on Saturday. Are you hoping he can bounce back?
Yeah, he did. He made a good start in Gowran. He was disappointed in Nace the last day. Obviously, he is better going right-handed, and we tried to go left-handed. He's better going right-handed, and we tried to go left-handed with him, and he was a little bit keen. And I still know, all in all, I was disappointed with him. I think the better ground will be a help to him as well, but he definitely does have to bounce back, and it doesn't look an easy race. There's plenty in there with good form, and I'd say he'd have to put in a career best to be winning. But he definitely shows at home that he has plenty of ability. Obviously he only has 10-13, so I won't actually be riding him, but I'd be still hoping that he can win or run very well.
And a horse that we spoke to you this time last year, a horse that you rode last year in the Royal Bond novices hurdles, entered up in a listed handicap event at Fairyhouse this weekend. He's had the 3 chase runs, £7 lower. Pat Doro, how do you think he can shape up this season over fences?
Yeah, to be honest, he's disappointed us since the Royal Bond last year. A couple of things just went wrong. He won in Navan then before Cheltenham, and we thought we had him back, and he disappointed again in Navan or in Cheltenham. And he ran well in Galway, his last run over hurdles, and then went over fences. And the runs have been okay. He needs to probably just sharpen up a little bit, but he definitely looks on an okay mark, and he could run into the money.
Just wanted to mention the other Mozzie, not my mate Mozzie now, the other Mozzie who's also entered up this weekend, ran a good race in Galway. Tell us a little bit about him.
Yeah, he seems to work like a good horse at home, or above average horse. It was a great run behind Tom Cooper's horse in Galway. He was a little bit keen, probably the ground heavy, and an uphill finish probably not ideal for him. So coming back to the likes of Fairyhouse, I think will suit him a lot better. Look, the 2 bumpers he's in, I'm not 100% sure which one he go for yet, but they both look very competitive. you have Willie with a couple of point-to-point winners, and you have Gordon with the same. And as you'd expect this time of year, Willie and Gordon are going to have good horses in them, and it's not going to be an easy race. But we do definitely think he's above average horse, and he'd definitely be knocking on the door.
And Gavin has had great success with bumper horses so far this season. The two to note, obviously, on Navan at the Navan Racing Festival, Sprint Delamare. Obviously, he won a really hot bumper, didn't he, at Navan? How excited are you, I suppose, about him for the future?
That's what we're all dreaming of. The next one's coming on, isn't it, to keep the whole thing going? And as you say, he was very good. It looked a very strong bumper. I actually had rode Gordon's horse a couple of times at home, and I thought he was a decent horse. I didn't think there was much between him and Gavin's horse from riding them at home. I'd say neither of them are kind of flashy horses. They're stayers, and the two of them are probably 3 mile chasers. And thankfully, Gavin's lad came out on top that day, and hopefully he'll stay coming out on top.
Super. And Only by Night, she was very, very smart as well on the Sunday. Do you think she could go hurdling sooner? Would you reckon, Gavin?
Yeah,
on bumpers.
Yeah, no, I'd say she'd go over hurdles at Christmas. I actually don't think there's a mare's maiden hurdle for her at Christmas. So whether Gavin will run her in a normal maiden, I'm not sure, or just wait for a mare's maiden. But I think she's definitely going hurdling, and she'd have to be very excited by her. She couldn't have done it much easier the 2 days she won, and she's definitely going to be a nice mare going forward.
Yeah, and we can't move on from Gavin's horses without mentioning Florine Porter. Obviously ran in the Florida Pearl.
Yeah, I'd say it's there to be seen that he'd probably be better going the other way. Don't think I'd say much on that, but yeah, I think he definitely. I still, everything went wrong the other day. I thought everything was fine until the fourth fence or the fifth fence, and then the loose horse came up around me and just set me alight, and then he stayed out wide for the whole race, the loose horse, which didn't help me. And all things considering, I think he still ran a brilliant race. I think we only beat 14 lengths, and so much went wrong. So if we can get him back going left-handed, I'd imagine he'd be going to the Leopardstown at Christmas and onto the Brown Advisory then. His record speaks for himself around Cheltenham. So you'd have to be very, very hopeful of a massive run from him.
For Champ.ie listeners, before we do let you go, wish you the very best of luck this weekend. Young horses, maybe one or two that we haven't seen so far. Anything you're looking forward to seeing get out this season?
There's a horse of Chris Jones's. He had one run in Cork. He finished third. He's called Fenway Park. I think he'd be a horse that'd be worth following for the year, and he might be one there to keep an eye on in the spring there in a novice handicap or something like that.
Boylesports. Don't just bet. Choose wisely.
So Keith Donoghue, what a season he's having, and can he get amongst the winners at Fairyhouse this weekend? It's going to be very interesting to see how the Fairyhouse Group 1 stand up. Bearing in mind, of course, we've had back-to-back weekends at Navan and then at Punchestown, and normally they've had a run to themselves. Let's go and talk about them in the order in which they're going to be run on Sunday. So we start with the Royal Bond, the novice race over 2 miles, and Anne Shabafa, Rob Corr, and Henry de Bromhead, and also Encanto Bruno for Gavin Cromwell, likely to be amongst those at the top of the market. But the other de Bromhead runner, Slade Street, you can't really rule out. The thing that catches the eye is only one in this race for Willie Mullin. Oh, no, he's got 2 in the race, and Gordon Elliott as well. It's the usual suspects, but it's a race where a few of them have got a little bit to prove. Ronan Groome.
Yeah, this was a savage race last season, Mike. Myself and Barry were there, and we saw the front 4 come clear, and the rest of them were nowhere. They couldn't go the pace that they went. It was a rattling good pace. And the front 4, if you recall, all won Grade 1s later in the season. So it really was like a great guide to the rest of the season. Obviously, Marine Nationale coming out on top there with Irish Point and Ashrow Diamond and Champ.ie in behind. I don't think it's as good a race this season, I have to say. Maybe time will tell it isn't. I just don't think there's a star in there. I think the favourite, as they have it at the moment, the early prices that have come out this week, I think that's a wrong favourite. Encanto Bruno, I do respect him. He's a nice bumper horse. He's done nothing wrong so far, really. Bar's mishap there in his penultimate start, but I think he's favoured because they're looking at the Mel Monroe form from Cheltenham and thinking that's a form boost. I was at Nav and Gordon said that she'd come on significantly when she ran second there to Crow Park, so I wouldn't be reading that form as really strong, or maybe as the market reads it at the moment. I think whichever Rob Corr, Henry de Bromhead horse gets declared here on Tubber or Slade Steel will probably be favourite. And to my money, I think it'll be on Tubber. He's already course distance winner, albeit on the inner course, and he kind of showed a bit of speed there. He kind of got away from Champagne Admiral in a steadily run race. He's obviously a high-profile horse. Davy might know more about him from the point-to-point scene, but he missed all the last season, which probably mightn't have been any harm. Robbie Power was saying that after the race. He's a nice big horse. Just give him time to fill out. The likes of the others, Farron Glory, Facile Mode, they're all like maiden hurdle winners. Could be anything, I guess. But I think on Tubber, if there is a star in here, he could be the one. I was half tempted to put him up on the Cheltenham show for something. I just didn't think there was any chances of me taking him in his prices, but I could see him win smoothly here if he does go ahead and win.
Barry.
Yeah, it's interesting because on Tubber came with a massive reputation off the back of that, point-to-point victory. And I think last year, I suppose the worry with him was there was talk of tendon injury, which, obviously he's had the one start now, was on the inside track, which Davy absolutely loves at Fairyhouse. Jumped like a chaser. I'd say in time you'll see this horse definitely up and trip. I'd say Slade Steel will definitely go up and trip. Although Henry did say, he's not short a boot after his victory with the tuck strap on for the first time. It was weak enough in the market, actually, when he did win at near Slade Steel. I just think the two Rob Carr runners might be better seen when they step up and trip in time. Whereas the likes of Encanto Bruno, I think he sets the form standard. I disagree with Ronan in the Cheltenham run, but I also thought, or Cheltenham form, should I say, I also thought he showed plenty of toe over 2.5 miles. Jumped very, very professional. He's an experienced edge on most of these. Gavin's horses are absolutely flying it at the moment. And we did speak to Keith. You heard from Keith in the last segment of the show that, most of his victories has been on good ground, but it's not a concern, the soft ground. If it does, it is going to dry out now. I think you probably are going to see yielding in the description by the time Sunday comes along. I think he sets the standard, and I'd be quite strong on him. I thought he travelled through the race like a very good horse in Cheltenham, and Keith reckons he's improving. So I'd be very much with Encanto Bruno. I thought if there was one to come maybe from left field, it might be Facile Mode. He was quite impressive, looked a little bit green still in the run at Punchestown, but that was back 53 days ago. So this has probably likely been a target, in terms of a step up from his maiden hurdle, but it is a step up in class coming in against these. I'm not sure about the Mullins runners in here, the likes of Bialystock and Horanzo Dari. So I'm very much in the Encanto Bruno camp. And I think Gavin Cromwell could have an absolutely cracking day on Sunday.
Be nice to see him with a big team for the festival. Davey?
I'm smiling because it's not often I agree with Barry, Mike. That's why.
No, normally it's a question of who's round. He don't even agree when it's who's round, is it?
No. I do agree as well with Ronan. Like, he is very short, but it's not an overly strong renewal. But Encanto Bruno, very impressed with him in Cheltenham. I know that was over 2.5, but he's a huge amount of pace he has, and I think this sort of race is going to suit a pacey horse like him. Interesting what Ronan said about the Mel Monroe run when she was second behind Crow Park, and he'll be probably Gordon's number 1 horse for Naas in January. But yeah, I can't get away from Gavin's horse here. I was just very, very impressed by him in Cheltenham. I know they think a huge amount of him, and Gavin had mentioned to me before that he said he's looking forward to dropping him back to 2 mile just because he travels so well, and he jumps well. So I just think he's the pick for me. Like you said, Henry wouldn't know which 2 he'll run, but look on Tubber. Yeah, he was out for a long, long time, and Slade Steel was good too, and he won. But obviously, King of Kingsfield behind him, but he's been a disappointing horse anyway. Yeah, I can't see it any other way than Gavin's horse, to be quite honest.
Okay. Third leg of the 5 cast complete. Right, your selection down as we move straight on to leg 4. And this is the one over the fences. And we've got the Hatton's Grace still to come. But leg 4 is the Drinmore. Grade 1, 2.5 miles, €85,000 in the pot. And Gordon Elliott's got 2 in the Bective Colours, American Mike, and also found a filly. And Sharjah finally going chasing. He's almost as old as Ronan Groome. Ronan, throw that back and we have first innings on this.
It's a cracking race. I think it is going to cut up. I think Favori de Champ.ie won't run so quickly after last week, and American Mike is probably going down to Limerick, I believe. So that brings it down to 5. I Am Maximus, I'd say, will run because Willie did the exact same thing with his Irish National winner or Irish National horse in Galliard Damanil last year, even though it seems like it's going to be an inadequate trip. But I think the 3 you concentrate are the 3 that are kind of towards the top of the market there. Let's Be Clear About It, Found a 50, and Sharjah. Let's Be Clear About It. Like he's an 8-year-old, so he's kind of a bit of a late bloomer, but he probably is, always going to be a chaser, and he's done really well so far. Maybe Mighty Tom let his form down a tiny bit last day, but I wouldn't crab that. I wouldn't take that completely literally because that horse was going down to 2 miles, and Lucid Dreams was in behind him, so it probably is decent form from Cork, and he pretty much won on the bridle, so I can see why he's favourite. Found a 50, Gordon's horse, like. He was a tip in itself at just going up to Down Royal for that race because Gordon has won that with the likes of Delta Work and then Boyle and Sam Crow, that beginner's chase, and he pretty much bolted up as well. I was asking Gordon about him there at the recent stable tour down at the in Cullentra, and Gordon was saying he kind of went off the boil last season. He probably shouldn't have ran him at Aintree, just kind of blew his top there. And he wouldn't look too much into his last 2 runs last season, and he was really impressed with him up at Down Royal. So he's interesting. And Sharjah, obviously, like people will crab him, and he might go out a bit in price because he's a 10-year-old going chasing. But like Willie Mullins isn't opposed to doing this at all. We've seen how good Classical Dream was last week, and obviously Fahim won a couple of grade 1s when he was a 10, going chasing late in his career. Sharjah jumped like really well last time. Like you can't really argue with the way he jumped, and he was over 2.5 miles. Like he looked as good as Let's Be Clear About It, and probably a reasonably good race as well. I wouldn't put anyone off him. I don't think there's much between the 3. Guns ahead, I probably would side with Sharjah, but probably want a bigger price than what he is now.
Davy?
Yeah, a very intriguing race. Really looking forward to this one. As Ronan mentioned, American Mike won't run. And Gordon's other lad that won in Punchestown the other day. So let's be clear about it. I think the big thing with him is he definitely looks like one of those horses that he's improved for a fence. Obviously, he had good runs as a novice hurdler. What was he, 4th in a Albert Bartlett, which turned out to be decent form, good horses in front of him. But just the way this horse jumps is unbelievable. Those Cork fences aren't easy to jump, they're not, and just the way he travelled throughout the race and the way he jumped, it's very eye-catching, and very, very keen on him, really like him. Found the 50, very exciting. Gordon was telling me yesterday that he'll run, and they like him a lot. And you can back up what Ronan said as well about the couple of runs last year. And I think that typical cliche, everything is a bonus as novice hurdler. They're always very excited about this lad. Once he went chasing, he won a point and bulled it. Then Sharjah, it's just mad, isn't it? But you look at his form, champion hurdle form against all those best 2 mile hurdlers. If he's not winning, he's only getting beaten by them, whether it be Honeysuckle or the lad that won the other day, Willie's other horse.
Stayman.
Yeah, that's the one, Stayman. So it's tough, very tight on Sharjah, and let's be clear about it, but just down to just jumping, I'm going to go with let's be clear about it. I think Gavin Cromwell could do a double in the 2 first grade 1s.
Barry?
Yeah, and it's 8-1 as well. I think it's a cracking double. 7-4, let's be clear about it. I'd be having that now. I mean, Gordon's horse, it's been the Gordon Elliott race, hasn't it, in recent years? Obviously, he's won 6 of the last 10. Rona mentioned the race up at Down Royal. What about the Drinmore? Mighty Potter, Envoy Allen, Delta Work, No More Heroes, Don Cossack, a winner of the Drinmore. So if 10-year-old Sharjah turns up on softer ground and wins the Drinmore at the age of 10, then this is probably going to be the weakest renewal in a long, long time. I think it'll stay in County Meath, this one. Fourth in the Albert Bartlett. Let's be clear about it. I'd say he wasn't in many people's list for 2.5 mile graded chases at the start of the year. Certainly looking from the outside in, but what he's achieved on the track, I think Davy's absolutely right. You know, the way he was attacked his fences down in Cork in particular, obviously won at goal on his first start over fences, but he's an 8-year-old. He's probably done lots of schooling in his time as well. And I just love the way he attacked fences. I mean, jumping is the name of the game, and he's a strong staying 2.5 miler, which is, look at the types that won it: Mighty Potter, Envoy Allen, Delta Work, No More Heroes. They're big staying horses. Don Cossack went on to win the Gold Cup. I think Let's Be Clear, but doesn't lack pace. I think that's what Keith said in his interview. And 7-4, I mean, I don't think that's going to last somehow. 8-1 the double, Gavin Cromwell, Encanto Bruno, and Let's Be Clear about it.
So there you go. There's 4 legs now done of your 5 cast. And we have one more, the €120,000 Hatton's Grace hurdle race, 2.5, due off at 2:35. 4 runners here for Gordon Elliott, of potential runners, and 2 for Willie Mullins, namely Ampere et Passé and Ashrow Diamond. A really interesting race. And let's see who wants to go first. Ronan.
Yeah, you should tee up Barry for his Pere Pass Jerry Hannon thing right at the end, Mike. It's a real treat. I think he will. I think he'll win here. I'm actually surprised. He's a 4-6 shot. Like I just had it in my head he'd be a shorter price than that. Albeit he's against Tiupu, last year's winner. This race is like much like the Ballymore at Cheltenham is. It often favours a speedier horse than a stayer horse. Granted, Tiupu won last year and Classical Dream was second. I think that was an exception to the rule. If you go back through the list of honour, the roll of honour, likes of Honeysuckle, Apples Jade, Arctic Fire, Jeski, they were all kind of went on and did better things over 2 miles later in the season. And I think that's obviously what Imperi Pass, or the connection to Imperi Pass, are hoping he'll do. Like, look, he's so unexposed. He has the potential to be. It was a bold call to keep him over hurdles, but he does have the potential to go even further. Obviously, this season, obviously you see what Gaelic Warrior has done, and he absolutely kicked him out of the way at Cheltenham. That was only his 3rd start over hurdles. You know, he could be anything. Like, obviously, it's a tall order to go to get to Constitution Hills level, but as I said, he does have the potential. Tiupu, I can see him just getting outspeeded and outclassed here, to be honest. And I would not be surprised if Imperi Paz like a trees-on shot come the off when they get declared.
Who wants to take this one? Barry, interesting one for me is Ashrow Diamond getting away from her rivals here. And of course, she was really impressive when winning the Grade 1 Novice Hurdle over this track back in August.
Yeah, and she ran a cracker as well. I think she was Ronan Groome's eye catcher of Royal Bondi last year in the Royal Bond, and that form has worked out very, very strong. And speaking of which, Irish Point just touched off last year by Marine National, and I'd love to see the 2 Robco runners running this now. I'm not sure will one come out or will both of them run, but I'd love to see Irish Point have a go at this now. He looks a real 2.5 mile specialist. Obviously, he didn't run in Cheltenham, ran at Aintree. And I think the last day as well, Magical Zoe is no mug. She won it down Royal last year. And she was getting plenty of weight off Irish Point. They took a couple of flights out up at Down Royal. So it made it a little bit more. I think there was a longer run in. I think it made it more of a stamina test, but that was plenty of short. The trip was plenty of short for Irish Point. Gordon has said that he might not step him up in trip to 3 miles straight away. I think he's plenty of pace, for 2.5 miles. This is probably his trip. If there's any chinks in Imperial Path first time up, I think this horse is a good each way bet in the race. And certainly in the betting without market. Tiupu's record fresh is very, very strong, but the ground is drying out, which I think is probably going to be a negative for him. And I would see him as a very lively stayers contender this year, but maybe for this race with the match fitness as well, I thought Irish Point, with that course form from the Royal Bond last year, could could certainly give Imperial Pass something to think about here first time up. So, and it's his first run as well. It's in open company as well. So it'll be interesting. But that form of the Ballymore, absolutely mid mincemeat a Gaelic warrior. We'll see what he's after doing. So he could be very, very special. But for the 5-cast purpose, I'm going to chance Irish Point. I like him. I hope he runs. If he doesn't, Imperial Pass should win.
I don't think Irish Point will run, so Barry will be disappointed. I think it could be William Mullins 1-2, to be quite honest with you. Imperial Pass, really looking forward to seeing him. Himself and Statement could be the two for Willie to take on Constitution Hill. It was the ideal starting point for him over the trip of 2.5. Ashrow Diamonds third in a Royal Bonds here last year. Obviously, as Ronan said, the first 4 in that all winning grade 1s. She's very good, getting weight off them as well. And I think it's a Willie Mullins 1-2 in this one. I think Gordon will probably only run Tiahupu.
Okay, let's go to the 3 wise men. At least that's what it says here. And throw this open. You've got anything you want from Fairyhouse or anywhere else thrown in over the weekend. What's caught anybody's eye? Ted Hastings has caught my eye. He's in at Fairyhouse over the weekend. Barry, go first.
Yeah, start with Newbury on Saturday, the 155. There's a mare running in the listed. It's the first race at Newbury on Saturday. It's a horse called Mighty Mott. Caught my eye in a couple of bumpers last year. I think she's decent form. She's been well backed, and I think she's a very decent chance in the first race. Mighty Mott. Conditions I think will suit her at Newbury. I like Pat Doro for Gavin Cromwell each way. It's his first run in a handicap. And was well, touted last year for the Royal Bond. Disappointed. He's had 3 runs over fences, 2 miles. I think he's a decent enough jumper. He's obviously won a point to point, and I just don't think we've seen the best of him. He's 9-1. I definitely mention him. And when we JJ Slevin on the show last week, he mentioned a horse called Nürburgring. It's entered up in the grade 3 at Fairyhouse. Of course, that's juvenile hurdle. So I'm interested to see how he gets on. And I'll probably have an each way bet on him as well. Decent form from Listowel. Got thrown out down at Listowel, but decent form on the flat. So he's a fair horse, and I'd say he'll go quite well. But there's plenty of unexposed types in that. And I like Iron Bridge as well on Friday, 7-1 in a handicap for John Joe Neal and John Joe Jr. in the Hemming suits. I think that could run well. It's 7-1. And I'm going to put that forward as well. But we'll get on to naps in a moment. But anything else, lads, to mention? Roland?
Yeah, I like a few of Fairyhouse. 12:50 on Saturday, the ladies' handicap chase. I like a horse of Gordon's here called So Day Flow. I can't say I'm familiar with the rider booked, Charlotte Butler, but I think her mount is a pretty good chance. He was quite a good hurdler last season, and he has a mark of 118 and only his third start over fences. This will be much easier for him at a handicap chase as opposed to taking on the likes of Grange, Clare West, etc. He's completely unexposed, and he could just be thrown in off that mark. In the easy fix is the 2-mile race. It's probably a trial for the Dan Moore, but I like a horse here called the Folks Tiara, off a mark of 124. Lovely. I'm very partial to a Henry de Bromhead 2-mile chaser, which is exactly what he is. I think he could be very well treated. He ran a couple of very nice runs last season, one in behind final orders at Leopardstown. We all know that's a very good horse. He was very progressive at the time, and then he was third to Dino Blue from £5 out of the handicap at Punchestown. So he's in at the bottom of the weights for the easy fix. And then just a couple on Sunday. Cossack Chach, I think if he's declared for that grade 3, the juvenile hurdle, I don't know what Willie has here. Maybe Batman Drac. I don't like making his debut, but this Cossack Chach, he went clear with Woodhue up at Down Royal, and he's a lot less exposed than her. He was giving her weight, and she had a bit of race fitness on site. He's only run once on the flat, so I think it was a big run on only his third ever start. I think he could go really well. And Diol Care in the Porterstown, the 12:55 on Sunday. He didn't get very far in the Troytown, but I liked his run at the start of the season in the Cork National. It ran a lot better, and I could see him running very well for Gordon on only his third start. I think he could be potentially well handicapped as well, off of like 144.
Davy, in the words of Gilbert Sullivan, I've got a little list. What's on your little list?
In the 2:15 at Newbury on Saturday, before the big race, horse of Nicky Henderson's price now not overly attractive, 64, but Under Control is her name. She's very exciting mare. This is. She came from France after winning, and she won, and then she ran very disappointed in Cheltenham, where I think she was second last of 21. But I think you can definitely forgive her for that. And then she's won twice since, and she had a wind up during the summer. And I know that they think an awful lot of this JP McManus owns mare, and looking forward to seeing her on Saturday make her seasonal reappearance. As I said, after the wind up and everything, I think you could be hearing plenty of her throughout the year. I think she's very good. And in the bumper on Sunday, which has thrown up obviously a lot of very good horses over the years, there's a horse down the bottom there called Undeniable Alibi of Gordon Elliott's for Rob Court, the son of Saint to Saints. He won a 2.5 mile point to point in Punchestown for Colin Bowe, and Rob James rode him that day. They always liked him, held him in high regards, weren't surprised that he went and won so impressively when he won. And I know that they like him a lot now, and looking forward to seeing him in the bumper. And I think he's a horse that you could hear plenty of this season.
Gowran Park Racecourse, the premier racetrack in the southeast of Ireland, is located on the outskirts of Kilkenny City. Gowran is your #1 choice for corporate days out, stag and hen party events, and an overall great local racing experience. Known as the race that stops the county, the famous Goffs Thyestes Chase 2024 takes place on Thursday the 25th of January.
In the finish of the Goffs Thyestes, invitation only, and Ruby Walsh on the near side for Willie Mullins' 7th win of the race. Invitation only has beaten Outfitters Opus.
With packed crowds expected once again this January, you can book your early bird tickets online today. Visit GowranPark.ie online, click the link in the Champ.ie podcast video description, or scan the QR code on screen to purchase right now. Eddie and the team look forward to welcoming you all to Gowran Park Racecourse this winter.
Justified favouritism, but sharp object out in front, we're ready for John McConnell and Alex Harvey.
Western victory, Silver Land, never read the finishing order.
How about you? I can't wait to go to the Thyestes if I get a chance to go with that trip to Thomastown. The traffic will be building up about Tuesday beforehand. It's going to be a really outstanding day. And Eddie Scally, I'm delighted to say, who is the boss, he is Mr. Thyestes Chase, the boss of Gowran, will be on the programme next week. And we might even ask him for a nap. But let's ask these lads for a nap, shall we? First of all, Barry. You've muted yourself.
It must be a winner. So Encanto Bruno, Mike, I think 9-4, I think is a very fair price. I think the others, as mentioned, I think there's question marks about a couple of them. And on Tubber and Slay Steel, if they both run, I think they'll be better over further. Encanto Bruno, I think he'll take a lot of whacking in that Royal Bond.
I was going to say with Encanto Bruno, it's just a shame. No, I mean, Harry has retired. Ronan.
I'll go for a horse I didn't mention. Taking a chance that she is actually declared on Sunday. Foxy Girl. Mentioned it on the podcast before up at Down Royal. She just ran a bit gassy that day. She was real fresh. And she came through to finish third to Magic Tricks. I think if that run takes the edge off her, she could still be very well handicapped off a mark of like 127 or something like that. She ran a big race last year in the Mayor's Novices Hurdle when she was sent off 13-2 on your third start. So someone really fancied her. And I think she could be really interesting if declared for the 2 mile handicap hurdle at Fairyhouse on Sunday.
And Mr. Davy, I got my Wi-Fi fixed in the end, Boland.
Let's be clear about it in the Drinmore. Big fan of this horse. As I mentioned earlier, just think, he he was good over 3 mile and everything last year, but just think because of his jumping, and he is a pacey enough horse. Back and trip 2.5 mile, he could go up to 3 mile either if you want. I think big future this horse, and I think he'll win on Sunday.
So there you have it, and fingers crossed above everything else that we get a full weekend of racing in. Next weekend, of course, we've got the Tingle Creek, and we've also got the Beecher Chase over the national fences, amongst other things. Plus, we'll hear from Eddie Scally. Any last items of business, anybody? Barry?
Yes, Mike, the 5-cast, obviously the first 5-cast, our monthly 5-cast with a couple of qualified entrants, thanks to 2 winners or more. Shout out to Anthony Doobie, Chris Neville, both got 2 winners. And as well as that, Far Cappel's knocking on the door once again. Shout out to Ronan's dog. I don't think it's on the show today. Yeah, the VIP prize for the month of November, I think we have to give it to Far Cappel, because he did land, of course, that 440 to 1 5-cast, got all 5 selections in there. So get in touch, goodie bag for you, and plenty of nice stuff. So get in touch via Twitter. You can get in touch in the, of course, to our email address, which is champ.ie@gmail.com, to collect your prize. And what a fantastic prize we're going to start rolling out for next, for the 5-cast Mike Vince on next week's show. But you can start getting your selections down below right now. It's going to be a lovely prize, which does include a big trip to the Thyestes Chase.
That's going to be a terrific day. And of course, you talk about the Thyestes. Let us not forget that card also includes the Galmoy Hurdle, which is often a big clue for the stayers at Cheltenham in March as well. And those that have stayed tonight are Barry Doyle and Ronan Groome, and also Davy Boland. My thanks to them. Hope you have a successful, profitable, and dare I say, warm weekend. Lots of winners. Enjoy Fairyhouse on Sunday. And from all of the Champ.ie team, we'll see you next week. That is the one certainty of this particular programme.